All right. Hello, friends and family. This is Trey. I was asked to do a commentary on a company called Maximus Inc. Why is Maximus Inc. so important to us? Well, this is the source of all your pain right here, these people, in various different ways. So if you have a child support case, if you have a family court case, a guardian ad litem involved, if you have any sort of social service providers involved in a court case, you want to listen to this. So Maximus Inc. is a huge multi-billion-dollar corporation that earns its profits from intervention of families, in a nutshell. Now, the reason this is so important to you to understand is because this corporation, yes, it is a private corporation, but they are procured in contract by your government officials, okay? So a lot of misconception is out there based on what is private and what is government. And, you know, if they're private, there's no connection and don't listen to them. And I'm here to tell you right now that if anyone's guiding you to do such a thing, hit the brakes. Hit the brakes because you're going to get arrested. So I'm going to explain to all of you how these corporations work. So at this time, I realize most people are feeling desperate and in a pinch, but acting on impulse is not going to help you. Okay, so it's going to take a little know-how, it's going to take a little elbow grease, and it's going to take a little learning time so that you can provide yourself with the best possible defense and not put yourself in a predicament that actually causes further harm. And you're going to learn why that is today. So I'm going to just do a very general overview of who this company is, what they do, how they link into your family life, and why it is very, very important that you do not demonstrate belligerence, that you do not demonstrate your inability to discern with what the law says. Because the more you do that, the more likely it is that you will have yourselves in the clutches and the grips of this company without really understanding how it works. A lot of times we are led in desperation to try new things based on basically what others are telling us to do. It's not a good idea, my lovelies, not a good idea. So please hit the brakes, take some time. I'm going to give you guys a lot of intel on what goes on behind the scenes so that you can better empower yourself to defeat this thing. Okay, so this is super important. If you don't understand trust law, if you don't understand contract law, if you are not familiar with the fact that the courts are general provisional customs courts and don't know what that means, then please stop whatever it is you're doing and just take a couple of weeks to learn a little bit more so that you can empower yourselves to make a very fully informed decision on your next move. I don't like seeing children being removed from their families. This is really what got me into studying all this, okay? So I do not have a CPS case. I have never had involvement with CPS in my life. However, I did have a family court case and a GAL that led me to realize something was horribly wrong. When I realized that, I started hearing from families about CPS, and that was very disturbing. So what I did is I grabbed some cases and I dug in and I learned about the Child Support Enforcement Agency and what they're really doing behind the scenes that no one else has ever explained. I don't know if others don't know this, haven't caught it, or whatever the case may be, but hit the brakes for now. This is going to be just a general overview to get you to understand how things work behind the scenes. I will continue to do videos to demonstrate for you how I found what I found and what it means to you and how you can use it. There are solutions, yes. So right now, you're going to have to be patient while you learn these things in order to help you. Unfortunately, there's no magic bullet, okay, friends? There is no magic bullet. So most of you were referred to me by Jack. And the reason is because Jack has actually been looking at Maximus for quite some time. I had not found Maximus yet, but have been looking for them for quite some time. So it came together brilliantly and beautifully. And the reason is because my research has led me down the road to child support enforcement as being what is called a financial advisory firm. Yes, financial advisory firm. With financial advisory firms, you must have a financial advisor, hence the terms guardians. Okay, this is something that you're going to learn more into, but I hope it has your attention enough so that you can learn a little bit more about this company, what they do, and how we can address it. Okay, so this particular company started up, of course, in Virginia, right? They are huge. All right, they are all over the world, and what they really are trying to do here is business acquisitions. So by gobbling up all things related to Medicaid and Medicare services and anything that links to them, they are basically in pursuit of a monopoly here. So anything related to child support or children in general and their rights comes back to this particular company. Okay, so that's why we should all be interested and we should all be putting the spotlight on this particular company. Now, I am not recommending that anybody in learning this right now starts the process of going after them. And here's why. When you make bad decisions and you pull these people out into the open, they're going to get combative. They're going to start blocking us from remedy, right? So take the time to learn a little bit first before you do it. There are going to be some people out there I know that are really well versed and really well studied that might actually, this might spark some ideas for you. But again, before we make that big move, I would hope that maybe we can put our heads together. You can't know everything. I don't know everything. You don't know everything. So maybe together we can create a monster suit and see if we can't figure out how to make things move faster. Again, I'm only one person. So hopefully when you guys hear this information, it will spark some, innovation here. But let's go over Maximus. So this particular article is one of many. Maximus also is a stock holding company in trust. Their stock currently sells at $76 per share, which tells you just how successful this company is. Okay, so now, as I was telling you, they accumulate all the other little companies out there that have everything and anything to do with Medicaid billing, right? So they have organizations that are typically nonprofits. These are called solicitors. These solicitors are charged with the duty of finding professionals that work in the field of social service and medicine that they can utilize for Medicaid care towards children and families, right? So these solicitors procure all these different professionals in a network, just like Blue Cross and Blue Shield. So they ask these providers if they would be willing to provide services to impoverished people that use state-provided insurance. These providers will say, sure, I'll jump on board. And now you have a network of providers that specifically use state insurance to help impoverished children and families. And this is very important. If you have a child support case, there's a reason for why you have that child support case. And most people believe it is to replenish welfare funds based off of if the mother gets food stamps and stuff like that. This is true, but it goes way deeper than that. So keep in mind that it's important to understand the full scope regardless of your circumstance here. So this particular company is basically also known as being Child Support Enforcement and Child Support Disbursement Unit, right? So you have these paternity acknowledge agreements that you've signed, and mom signed some documentation at the hospital. What happened here is that mom forfeited her rights to manage the financial medical care of the child without realizing it at the hospital level inside of their contracts. When she did that, they then gave dad this paternity acknowledgement agreement to sign, where he is now saying also he would rather they handle all of this stuff. So both parents are forfeiting their right to manage the child's health, well-being, and finances in regards to health and wellness. And we don't realize we're doing that when we sign up. Now, dad is afforded legal rights as a benefit, basically for conveying the child's rights to the state. This was an exchange, a valuable exchange. So as we convey the rights of the child to the state, we must receive something in consideration for value. That would be services, court services. By choice of law, we've entered into these agreements with them that we would go to their venue by choice of law if any dispute arises, okay? And it's a lot of depth. I know that a lot of people may not understand this. I will put more effort into explaining this in deeper detail as we go along. But like I said today, the scope is just to give you a real general understanding of what this company does and how we got involved with it. If you have a good understanding of contract law, this is probably going to click for you real quick. If you are not really understanding contracts very well, this may be a little confusing, but hang in there. We're doing our best to bring this to you as much as humanly possible. It would take me hours upon hours to deliver every single tidbit, so it's going to have to be broken down into pieces. So what this is explaining to us here is that they also have control of the workforce development. Okay, everything is about development. I want you to keep that in mind for the future. So when you sign up with your employer, they also then keep track of the financial contributions you provide to the labor force. And as you can see here, it explains to you that you can't just be entitled to this assistance. It has to be earned through work participation and personal responsibility. That's a huge important a statement in and of itself. So when we're involved with the Social Security network, a lot of that comes down to, like they're just talking here, is the labor force. We provide labor in exchange for valuable consideration, which is basically just your protection, like unemployment and things like that, and the cash assistance. So because you've contributed, you are entitled now to benefit if anything goes wrong in your life, that they will support you in a certain way. This is a pattern of how the corporations work within the government. So that's why I want you to have a general understanding of it, because as we go deeper, it's going to become more clear. So in order to receive these entitlements, you have to be a participant. Okay, if you are not a participant, you would not be entitled, and neither would they. So as a participant in the Social Security system, that's only the very, very first step. Okay, this is not a federal Social Security issue. This is a state insurance issue. It's a supplemental insurance to the federal Social Security. Now, although you supply your Social Security mostly for identification purposes, what they do with that information thereafter is all they really do is call Social Security to verify that you have a birth certificate on file with the Vital Statistics Department. That's the only play Social Security has throughout this entire process until state reimbursement time. So all that money in the Fed is held on reserve until the states can prove that they've done all the things necessary and properly to get the reimbursement money. It is reimbursement. It is reserve and reimbursement. So everything that begins with the state, and it is based on the state supplemental income, okay? So through Maximus, what they've done here in gaining control of all these different Medicaid service providers, they've created sort of, what do you call it, like a no way out situation, because really what they're involved in is the data trade business, right? So everything that you receive in entitlements is not given to you in good faith. You have to be able to demonstrate by your record that you are in fact entitled. And that kind of explains it right there when they were talking about the work participation and personal responsibility, right? Now flip it over to when we're dealing with family and children. And what they're talking about, dads, is financial personal responsibility. So the Child Support Enforcement Agency has no concern whether or not you're supporting your child. Their concern is that you demonstrate your financial responsibility in order to keep track of those payments. Okay, has nothing to do with the amount, has nothing to do with the cash. What they're trying to do is keep record of whether or not you are financially demonstrating that responsibility. Because the moment you drop the ball and do not demonstrate your financial responsibility is the moment the state can make a ton of money on your family. So if you can't make those payments, you then are considered to be financially irresponsible, and therefore neglecting the child now becomes dependent. And because of that dependency, the child is now entitled to state-supplied disability insurance. So this is another issue we'll get deeper into, but I want you to have a general understanding of that. So whether it was to show of good faith or its impressive history of maximizing profits, it's impossible to say. But in 2004, Wisconsin once again contracted Maximus, this time as a revenue maximization consultant. The company was charged with helping the Department of Health Services prepare and file Medicaid claims to extract more money in federal reimbursement. The $3.4 million contract footed by Wisconsin taxpayers ran until 2009, and initially things seemed to be going fine. Perhaps the appropriation of $500,000 some years earlier was just a bad day in the office for Maximus. When the contract expired, DHS continued filing in accordance with the best practices development by the company. In 2013, these practices caught the eyes of the Inspector General for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, who found that they did not comply with federal requirements. Out of $41 million claimed for residential care services between 2004 and 2006, $39 million was deemed unallowable by the federal government. That translates into $19 out of every 20, and the feds are demanding Wisconsin pay back $23 million. Chances are that this number will increase by a magnitude when the claims made after 2006 get the fine-tooth comb treatment. W-2 and Medicaid consultancy are not the only services that have been outsourced to Maximus in Wisconsin. After spending more than $114,000 on lobbying the legislature on bills related to the W-2 budget allocation process, Maximus was awarded a renewed 6-year contract with the Wisconsin Department of Children and Families worth some $21 million in 2011. Once again, Maximus was charged with deciding whether cases, this time children placed in foster care, met the criteria for federal reimbursement. Indeed, Maximus had experience providing this type of service. In July 2007, Maximus paid $30 million to the federal government to settle criminal charges related to falsifying foster care claims. Even after Maximus was paid $30 million for false claims in the DC foster care system, Wisconsin went ahead and signed a contract with the firm for the same type of service. States are failing to learn from each other's experiences, or in Wisconsin's case, even their own. And Shabar Habibi, an expert on privatization at the Nonprofit Resource Center in Public Interest. But in some states, citizens are stepping up and speaking out. In neighboring Illinois, a Maximus outsourcing experiment came to a sudden halt in December 2013. Facing a shortage of staff, The Department of Healthcare and Family Services had contracted Maximus to deal with a backlog of Medicaid cases up for redetermination. An investigation of the redetermination data found that Maximus's work was sloppy and had high error rates, as opposed to the work carried out by the state employees. The case went to arbitration, and during the proceedings, a state employees union showed that Illinois could save $18 million by hiring more staff to make up for the shortfall instead of using a contractor. The independent arbitrator issued an order canceling the $77 million contract with Maximus. So they went to arbitration to cover it up. Okay, this isn't going to be showing, this particular case won't show the public court forum there. They went there because that's private judging, and they wanted to make sure that it wasn't too revealing how this Maximus system works. Now, their contracts are far, vast, and wide. They contract, basically with the hospital. So they control all of the healthcare professionals that will serve you. And at the same time, incentivize those same professionals to give you these unconscionable contracts that lock you in unbeknownst to you. It's a vicious, vicious circle and an ugly hamster wheel to be on. And that's why we are really looking and digging deeply into this particular corporation, because they're the leading corporation that supplies pretty much every aspect of the services government provides. It's crazy how much they do. So they not only procure the professionals that will service you, including CPS, okay? CPS is a professional service provider that Maximus is going to be providing the workers, and also assessing whether or not the workers' claims are legitimate. Is not good, not good. And that's why we're finding ourselves in the position that we're in, because the same workers that they hire are the same workers that say, okay, this is a valid claim, let's put it through. Like, that's not going to work, obviously. I don't really need to explain that. So without having to show you too much, because it will take too much time, I will show you more in the future. But understand that these particular service providers, all of them, have the connection to Maximus, and the whole ordeal here with child support services is that mom, what she's really doing is forfeiting her right to manage the financial care of the child. So someone has to do it. That's why they don't want dad in the picture. That's why dad ends up signing the paternity acknowledgement agreement, because he's also trading off his right to manage the financial care of the child in exchange for legal rights to use the court system. It's all that contract really represents. It's not really much deeper than that. Aside from behind the scenes, once you really get, in depth on what exactly they're trying to accomplish. So even if you have a traffic court case, this applies. That's the scariest part. It's in everything. Now, Maximus being a trust organization, how it really works is the trust itself opens up all these different organizations, or what we know as shell corporations. So from that trust, they will have a couple of nonprofits, and from the nonprofits, they will then open up a couple of profiting companies. The profiting companies then they transfer the money to the nonprofits as a pass-through corporation. So if I have a corporation that provides you with social service care, whatever I earn, a certain percentage of that is going to get donated to this nonprofit organization. Has a different name, has a different registry number, and all those things, but ultimately both of us have the same interest in funding the main trust. This is the principle, okay? And if you don't understand principle and agency, this is going to be something important for you to understand, because when these people are working to benefit the principle, and they are not working to benefit the beneficiary, this is where we get them. So this is something, again, I'll get into details further, but right now the whole point of this is just to give you a full scope and understanding of who these people are and what they do. So here we have all these different social workers, right? What they do is they will assess your mental health and the mental health of the child. Behind the scenes, through what is called an intake specialist. After they've made these observations and evaluations, they will report inside of the system to determine what kind of risk you are for causing future harm to the child. They also determine what kind of risk the child is for causing future harm to the economy. So if we abuse our kids, according to them, right, if there's something that we've done that has caused for what is called a serious emotional disturbance as defined in the DS-5, if we've done something that caused for this serious emotional disturbance, it doesn't matter if we actually did, if the company caused a serious emotional disturbance for the children, either way you slice it, the child now is entitled to disability benefits from the state. So when CPS steps in and take your kids, you may not be guilty of anything. You may not be guilty of abuse or neglect. It becomes irrelevant because of the fact that the child has now experienced an event in his life that leads to a serious social disability. And so now he is looking like a golden nugget to the state because now they can use that to get money. So in understanding that, understand also that the courts in and of themselves are a mental health provider. Okay, and I can show you that at a later time. I might even actually have put up a video about it already. I'm not sure. I know I posted it in some of the Facebook stuff. You might have seen it already. So because this court system is designed to service you, right? This is their job. They owe you a service because you have provided them the children's rights in exchange for those services. So they can't just not provide you a service. Like that's their job. That's what they're trying to do. And under the mental health evaluation that has occurred for both you and the children, by telling the court no, right, you are now impairing the contract. You are now in dishonor of said contract for refusal of services. So in the previous case I had worked on in CPS, we couldn't figure out, like every time the mom completed services, they kept saying that it wasn't enough or that she didn't complete services. The whole purpose behind that is because when you don't complete services, it alleviates the agency of their obligation to you so that they can still get paid. That's why they do it that way. Now, for child support people, who the gentlemen who are out there fighting against this whole system, when we're finding that you might not have the ability to pay, or what they do is they put these guys in jail and then say, okay, well, now you're in arrears, go back to jail. Like, this is insane, but this is why. Because when you have demonstrated your inability to pay, it also means that you have a dependency issue or a social mental health issue. Now you've become the dependent that needs services in order to help you correct your behavioral problem. So it's not that they're saying you're at fault, which is why you're not in a criminal setting or, a setting for breach of contract. It's not your fault because you're ignorant, is what they're saying, is because you don't understand how detrimental it is to the child. So there's no intent for you to harm the child, you just don't get it. And they can't prove intent, so this was a great way around it. So now what we have is this circular logic where you can't get out of it in a sense, because both the child is dependent and entitled services, and now you're dependent and entitled services. And in order to correct that, we're going to give you correctional services, hence the Department of Correction. When you go to jail in the county, this is not considered punishment, mind you. This is considered correction. Two completely different things. You can only be punished if you've committed a crime with malicious intent. And they have to prove that intent before they apply punishment. So to get around that, instead of having to prove intent, they now have this disability. Well, you just didn't know better, but we can fix that by taking away your toys and doing these things to you like a mommy and daddy does. So a lot of people have a somewhat of an understanding of that. Some have no understanding of that. Some have a complete clear understanding of that. So this isn't intended to bore you to death if you already know these things. This is really, like I said, just supposed to be an overview to show you how it all intertwines and interconnects. So a minor, okay, can be an adult. So even when they say minor, as defined in certain statutes, it depends on which statute you're looking at. You got to use the ones that apply to the circumstance, right? So under mental health, a minor as defined under state law and for the purpose of this subpart includes a resident who has been declared legally incompetent by an applicable state court. That declaration is sometimes very difficult to see because the declaration is dependency or irresponsibility. So they don't come out and say, we declare you to be incompetent. They use different terms that lead to this incompetency. So dependency is a term, irresponsibility is a term. If you're in violation of the Financial Irresponsibility Act, it means you are legally incompetent. And I have a lot of detail that I can go through because it is vast and wide and broad. Right? When you are deemed incompetent, it means that they cannot rely on you. Therefore, we must rely on the state to provide you with those corrections. So all of these different things in regards to medical health is what they're actually working on. That's what the Social Security plan is for. Facility means the entity that an entity that received assistance under the Title IV or Title 9 of the Act and provided a community service assurance. That's everybody. So a facility is dang near everybody. If they received any of those funds and then also have a community service assurance, well, you're talking about the courts. You're talking about those nonprofits, those alliances, and everybody else under the sun. So mental health court professional means a member of the mental health court team, including but not limited to a judge, prosecutor, defense attorney, probation officer, coordinator, treatment provider, or peer recovery coach. So everybody in there is assessing your mental capacity. And behind the scenes, what they do is they enter their observations and evaluation into the system. And from there, a forensic auditor or a forensic, not forensic auditor, a forensic examiner will go through those notes and basically diagnose you. And you never know it even happened. So this is really a lot of information. I really only wanted to give you an overview today. I hope that this has been some insightful information. I know, like I said, I know a lot of you guys have been studying really hard. A lot of people have a lot of information that I won't have. So somehow we might be able to put our minds together to really put the pieces together so that we can provide remedy in a fast and meaningful way to people out there who are really suffering. Some people are ready to go to jail. Some people are losing their kids. And I think that we have a really good way of going after this effectively now. So hopefully, if this makes sense to you, if it comes together, you'll be able to look a little bit deeper and come up with your own really good cases. But if this is still difficult to understand, like I said, I'll be doing some more videos to get in depth of all of this and what it means. And you can continue to participate if you'd like. If not, then that's up to you as well. If you have another way about going about things, and I'm good with that too. So any questions, just let me know. Anything you want me to go over in depth, then we'll go ahead and do that in the future as well. And until then, everybody have a great night. Let me know what else you'd like me to share in the future. Like the video and subscribe to it if you want to get future information that comes out. Hit the bell. I think you have to hit the bell if you want to be notified. So anybody who wants to hear in depth all these things, once you do that, I'm going to be putting out more videos. And in addition to that, if anyone's interested, like I said, I'm only one person. Jack is only one person. So if you are interested in helping others, if you're interested in combining efforts, if you have more information that might help us put the puzzle pieces together more clearly, then that is so very, very appreciated. You know, we could have like Zoom meetings and stuff and try to get this moving along a lot faster and help a lot more people. There is a remedy. So I'm not going to put the remedy on video. I'll tell you that right now. Not going to happen. I'd like to share it with everyone, but the problem with that is people will take it and misuse it or misapply it and ruin it for everyone else. So I'm not really going to get into details on public videos, but through the Zoom courses, we can talk more about it. It's just that, you know, in my experience over the last couple of years, we have a lot of people that are overzealous. They don't really have a clear understanding of the big picture and the scope of what's happening behind the scenes. And they don't have a really clear understanding of what to do or how it all, you know, what is effective in what they're doing. And then they gather all these people up and get them placed in jail or lose their kids forever. And I just don't have interest in working with anyone who acts impulsively in that way. So it is my intent to prevent you from going to jail. It's my intent to prevent children from being removed, or if we can get them back into the loving arms of their parents, that would just be the most amazing thing ever. The reason I've concealed a lot of this information over the last year is because I was afraid if I had released it, people would prematurely use it and do things that were more harmful than good. And I'm not saying that that's the intent of the user. I don't think that it's always a malicious thing. It's just that unintentionally, people can provide information or advice that leads to a much worse outcome. And I don't want to be that guy. So I waited to really give all this information to you guys until, number one, I was very certain that I was correct. And number two, I could prove it. I don't like to speak on things I can't prove. So I can show you everything that led me to this conclusion of how things work, but I can even show you in depth how it works from the inside out, front, back, beginning through the end. Maximus was the only missing piece to what I had already accomplished. So, you know, that was amazing that Jack found it. But again, I don't want to ruin any future remedy by prematurely and impulsively going after people in a belligerent way that might get them to fight back harder. Okay, we can do this with less belligerence. We can do this with less aggression if we put our minds together and work together as a people and help each other, you know. So for those of you who have maybe more understanding of contract law, help those who don't. Explain to them how it works. And, you know, I'm, like I said, I'm going to be trying to do as much as I can to help you guys with that. But I'm only one person again, and I only have so much time on my hand to put that information out. So I hope that this is somewhat clear. And if you want to participate, let me know. Everybody have a great night.